Okay, well, I've got 7:01, so I guess let's get this show on the road. Welcome to the APC meeting of 2/22/21. Call it to order. And let's do the roll call. We got Mary Lou. Say here.
Here.
Mike Gorman.
I see him.
Gorman.
I see Linda's name.
I'm not hearing you.
There, that's better. There we go. All right,
You're
sorry.
here, right?
Yeah.
Anita Remages.
Here.
Seth McCormick.
I saw his name.
I see him.
He's here. He's just unmute. He'll unmute himself. He's right there.
There we go. Sorry, guys. I'm a little late. I'm here.
Okay, Mike Johnstone.
Here.
And Kathleen Beeler is not here. And I don't believe she's going to be here. So I've got next agenda item is approval of the minutes, and it's already been pointed out to me that the roll call is incorrect. That was pointed out to me by Anita. So Anita, what I would suggest is I'm going to change the minutes, and they will reflect the fact that Kathleen Beeler was not present and that Mike Gorman was here. And I think if I make those changes, I think the minutes are correct. Is that your opinion also?
It is. I'm not sure if I know that there was one meeting Seth missed the roll call. I'm not sure if that was December meeting. I thought he was here for last month's, but doesn't matter. He was at the meeting.
I believe it was the meeting before last. So I'll get those minutes corrected. Do I hear a motion to approve those corrected minutes?
Motion to approve, Anita Remages.
Do I hear a second?
Second, Mike Johnstone.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, so I'll get that changed. Old business, okay. So, proposed amendments and restatement of the shoreline protection ordinance, originally sent by me on 12/12 and then resent by Chris Willoughby with changes by Seth McCormick on 2/19. Does everybody have a copy of that?
Yes.
Available?
Yes.
Good deal, okay. Anybody object if we just go through that from the front to the back and talk about changes? All right, let's do that then. So as I looked at it, under the definitions.
Hey, Bob,
Yeah.
Mike Norman here.
Yeah.
Just for a point of order, start on page 1.
Yep. Oh, does anybody have changes? Okay. My first change was under definitions, but if you've got something before that, let me know.
Yeah, just a small point. And it is Chris Willoughby going to take note of any changes
Yes.
or comments?
Yeah, he will. If we agree on them, he'll make the changes. Correct, Chris? You're muted, Chris.
I am ready to type when you guys are ready to direct.
All right.
Just my only comment is on the title up at the top in red, the words "and enhancement" don't belong there. That's not the title of the ordinance.
Yeah.
The ordinance is called the Lake Michigan Shoreline Preservation Overlay Zoning District.
You're right.
Do you want it up on the screen, Bob?
Yeah, that'd be great. I've got a technical support from John Wall.
Mike, will you say that again for me?
The red title up at the top, the words "and enhancement" in the fourth line
Okay.
don't belong there because that's not in the title of the ordinance. The title of the ordinance is Lake Michigan Shoreline Preservation Overlay Zoning District.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Any other changes before definitions? Okay, otherwise.
Wait, hold on, Bob.
Oh, go ahead.
Go to page 2. So I see it's up on the screen. So I'll wait till it goes to page 2.
Where do you need it, Mike?
No, the number 1 now, therefore, and then the number 1. I think, Chris, you can just correct the grammatical stuff there because this says chapter 154, et cetera, is hereby added. It's not added because it's already there.
Can't mute him.
What we are doing is just hereby restating this section. Is that correct, Chris?
Yeah, probably should, well, we can restate or amend and replace it, yeah, and it's.
Yeah, it's not added because it's already in the code.
So it should say restated?
Well, we can let Chris clean it up. It's just that.
Yeah,
it's not-
yeah, I think
not
we'll just say restated and shall replace it in its entirety.
Okay.
And then staying on that page, going down to the bottom, the titles, 154-206, that has the wrong title. 154-207, 154-208 is miscellaneous provisions. 154-206, if you look through the agreement, it should say exception for existing non-conforming uses or structures. So if you could just correct that, Chris.
Good job, Mike. You are picking up stuff. Okay.
Okay, you got it, Chris, you okay?
I'm good.
All right, go to page 3. That first 150, go not that far up. There you go, right there. Purpose, intent, and general applicability, another just little small point, the 1, 2, 3, 4th line down, okay? Lake Michigan property shoreline, the word property does not belong there. Again, the title of the ordinance is Lake Michigan Shoreline Preservation Overlay Zoning District, so just delete the word property. And then I'll turn it back to you, Bob. You were going to start on definitions.
Okay, so the one definition that I had issues with was Army Corps of Engineers elevation.
What page are you on, Bob?
Oh, I'm sorry, page 4. Army
Okay.
Corps of Engineers, right where John is, is that purple or blue? I'm colorblind, I can't tell.
Should be
Well,
able to see it on the screen too, Mayor.
And so
Oh, okay, I got it.
jurisdiction on the shores of Lake Michigan, as updated, it says from time to time. My feeling was, and I believe what the Army Corps said, is they were going to do that as deemed necessary, as opposed to just from time to time. And that would be I believe that's their decision as to whether when they want to change that. Anybody have an objection to that?
I think, and I don't want to speak for Seth, the way that it's written is kind of the way that lawyers probably write those things from time to time. I mean, that's what that does mean, but it doesn't matter to me either way of whatever the preference from language. It's just really accounting that it might be amended and leaving it open that just as cited, it might be changed from time to time.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that Chris is exactly right. That's why I drafted that way.
Okay.
And the only issue I have with as deemed necessary, because I think that's the intent of what they did. But there were provisions in the previous ordinance, in the draft that I commented on, that essentially said that if the town of Long Beach Building Commission determines that it's necessary, they can go back to the Army Corps of Engineers and ask for a revision. And then so if you're saying as deemed necessary by the U.S. Army Corps, that eliminates from the definition the concept of the building commission going to request. But I'm not going to get super hung up on it in terms of.
And I don't feel real strongly either. If you guys are more comfortable from time to time, I'm fine with that.
From my perspective, I think it's easier as written.
Okay.
It leaves more flexibility.
All right. Let's leave it then. Next one I have is delineation consultant.
Can I ask a question on that Army Corps, Bob?
Yep.
Are we all right?
Let me ask a point of order for Mr. LeMay here. Is this a APC discussion, or are we taking public comment at this point?
we haven't got a whole lot of other people on here. I think if we can get John's opinion on things, I'm okay with that.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand how you're handling this.
Yeah. Go ahead, John.
I mean, I can wait till the end. I don't care.
Well, I think it'd be a lot better to, if there's comments that you have that come up as we talk about things, I think that'll be a lot more efficient.
I guess my question on this one is, we're saying that their purpose is for establishing their jurisdiction. Is that stated somewhere in their documents, or we're just gonna, that's our construct?
No, that's what they've stated.
In their documents?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so the next one I had was delineation consultant. That should be next page. And the last line of that says the Long Beach Office of the Building Commission maintains a list of pre-approved delineation consultants. I actually talked to our delineation consultant yesterday or the day before, I'm not sure which, actually the one who we've used. And she tells me that the Army Corps of Engineers has a list of delineation consultants that they use. To me, it makes sense for us to use their list because I don't know that the town has a list. We have one person. If people want to use a delineation consultant that's approved by the Army Corps, I think we should probably let them do that.
Well, okay. I wasn't aware of that. And do we know where that list is maintained? Because every place that I've been that references the Army Corps of Engineers list of maintained delineation consultants, it's you get a 404 error.
She tells me it's on their website. I tried to look for it and I couldn't find it either. But you know,
I think conceptually that idea is like kind of a pre-approval. If the Army Corps will take you, why wouldn't the town of Long Beach take you?
yeah,
But as long as they're on the Great Lakes and not from, I don't know, New Mexico.
yeah.
So, and I'm in New Mexico. That's why I just said that. So, I conceptually don't have a problem with that. It seems like if the Army Corps will accept you as a delineation consultant, it should give you a rubber stamp to be a town of Long Beach delineation consultant, provided that you are a delineation consultant for the purposes of the Great Lakes.
Right. And I think somewhere in here also it says that the building commission has to approve your delineator. So we kind of have a double check on that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that the most important thing is not like the nuts and bolts of, I mean, I think the definition, I was trying in here to make the definition more open so that you didn't have one and you didn't have the option of the other two ones that you don't like. But I think the goal of this was to make it so that the people can be established by having experience on the Great Lakes and knowing what they're doing by having the appropriate education, training, and experience. So, I mean, I was opening my ears to what I heard both you and John say about not having enough kind of qualified delineation consultants and essentially trying to handicap for that. But if I have no objection to if whatever kind of in terms of the Army Corps that is central to our governing district, whoever has jurisdiction over the Great Lakes, if they're a delineation consultant for them, I'm fine if they're a delineation consultant for us.
Yeah, and I will check and make sure that the delineator from Dilterra can tell me where that list is.
Okay, because I did see that they used to publish it, and they publish it for all sorts of reasons, like St. Louis and Minneapolis, and the South, and I just all of the links that I found in searching, I could not find anywhere. So,
yep, I will check with her. She tells me she's on their list, but hopefully, if she's on their list, she'll be able to find it. And if not, we'll have to figure out what we do with that. But okay.
Hey, Bob, when you obtain that list, could you provide a copy of it to the rest of us, just so we see the names on there, and maybe a reference or a site for how we locate that list? Because that's obviously what you're going to find out.
Yep, and I will send that out.
Thank you.
And then on page 6, it refers to the Sage Coast Docks, Sage Living Shoreline brochure. I wasn't sure if everybody on this committee has seen that. I have it, and I can send that out if you don't.
I haven't seen it.
Okay, I will send it out.
Wait, where are you talking about?
I'm sorry, this is page 6,
Okay.
under revetment. It refers to
Oh, right.
verify cities and confirm possession of the reference map. So I will make sure everybody on the committee has that.
Stay on page 6 just for the sake of order.
Okay,
Go up a little bit there, John, to the word town engineer. Just correct the third line, the word environmental is not capitalized. Town engineer, the third
Yeah,
line.
I got it.
Yeah.
Before we leave page 5, I just had one quick question for you guys. That Clean Water Act regulation citation, what's in that, roughly speaking? Just the cliff notes.
No, I mean, it essentially establishes the features of the natural ordinary high water mark, and jives. It was almost wholly adopted by the Indiana Supreme Court in Gunderson in terms of what the standard is for determining the natural ordinary high water mark.
Okay, I think we ought to make sure we have a copy of that somewhere, as well as anything else we cite in here just at the town hall. I don't think it's.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, this definition cribs directly off both the definition in the Clean Up Water Act sites and the Gunderson decision. But I'm definitely happy to provide both provisions to whoever wants them to post on the website or for the building commission to have.
Okay, my next change is on page 9. Does anybody have anything before that?
Well, there's some stuff on page 6.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good with everything on page 6. Does anybody have issues with something on page 6?
No.
Okay. Anything before page 9?
Go to page, I don't know if it's page 8. I'm looking, go to page 8. Then number 3, go back a page. I was a little on the wrong. Go back to page 7, I guess. Down at the bottom there, number 3. Let me see. I'm looking at the wrong way.
You have a citation, Mike? Are you at 203 or something?
Yeah, I'm looking at 203. Yeah.
Okay.
203. Let me.
I can scroll down. We're at the top of 203 right now.
Go down to where the language is to be included in 203.
So it's at the bottom of page 8 and top of page 9, I think, then.
Right now, you're looking at what's being left in 203.
Yep, that's good. Keep going down to number 3. Keep going down. Okay, right there. Stop right there. This is a question why we are deleting the reference to 154-160. 154-160 is the continuous seawall ordinance. In A and B in there, those are the provisions of 154-160. I don't understand why we want to try to regurgitate portions of an ordinance rather than just referring to it. Chris, you following what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when we were discussing, I don't know if it was included for clarity. I don't remember the why of this change.
It seems to me we had the reference to the ordinance in there from the beginning. And that seems to be clearer to me if you refer to an ordinance and say you got to comply with the continuous seawall ordinance rather than trying to say to regurgitate specific sections of that ordinance. So that's my point. I mean, I'm not.
I
I guess I'd like
Correct me if I'm wrong, John or Dr. LeMay. It seemed maybe that was put in there to, and I know we take different tacks on these, right? Some are cross references, like Mike just mentioned, and some is just to try to make that language in there. That they still have to comply with the other one, right? But I think it was for clarity. But correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Yeah, I think we wanted to make things simpler for the homeowner and contractor just to understand rather
Well,
than make them search
Yeah,
all
I
over
tell you
through
what, though,
ordinances.
in trying to make things simpler, if there's already an ordinance on the books, that's the ordinance that applies. So, I mean, we're restating certain sections of the ordinance. So I don't understand why we would not refer to an ordinance that's already on the books and say comply with 154, 160. That's the continuous seawall ordinance.
Well, and
But is this more restrictive, Mike? That would be the only reason. Is this language any more restrictive than the 154, 160? I don't know.
I don't have it in front of me right now. I apologize. I don't think it is.
and would you give consideration to getting rid of the continuous seawall ordinance in lieu of this, since this is what would be applicable?
Well, that's another question. I'm not going to I don't have an opinion on that right now.
I guess we'd have to look at that.
Yeah, and so as we sit here, I believe that was some of the conversation and the thinking of that, but that would go hand in hand. Right now, there's a redundancy to Mike's point. So, preference-wise, it's better you get rid of a section.
Well, the reason for the continuous seawall ordinance was just to allow for closing gaps, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that could potentially go away. That would be probably a benefit, I would think. But we'd have to do some homework on it.
Well, I don't know that we can come to a conclusion on this at this moment. Maybe the way to do this is ask Mr. Willoughby to please take a look at that ordinance in relation to this language and give us your suggestion on how to handle that.
Yep, I think we can check on that and see. Maybe we can eliminate the continuous seawall ordinance. That would simplify our ordinances. I like that. But we better make sure by eliminating it, we're not creating some other
Right.
hole in our ordinances. Okay. So I guess let's check on that and we'll see what we can do.
All right, stop there now. We're at point 6 in 203.
Yep.
I remember when we adopted the shoreline protection ordinance in 2008, we had numerous discussions about the height of a seawall. So just explain to me why we are eliminating the requirement that it not exceed the existing grade and just kicking it to a third-party coastal engineer to make the decision.
I think, Mike, the thought there was if you have a protection structure that's required to be at the existing grade, it may not do what you would want it to do. If the existing grade is defined as post erosion, then you're in kind of between a rock and a hard place there.
I hear that, and I understand what you're saying, John. As I recall our discussions back when we adopted this ordinance, our concern was that a third-party coastal engineer is going to make that wall reach as high as he wants to make it. So in order to avoid a homeowner's coastal engineer jacking that wall up just for the sake of comfort, we said you got to comply with the existing grade. So I think that's why that language is there. So I'm not comfortable deleting that without a better understanding of why we would do that.
Well, putting in a seawall that has to be at existing grade may not protect the structures behind it, right?
Well, but Bob, that's you were part of all the discussions when this ordinance was adopted. And
Yep, I
we
know.
had a lot of discussion about the height of the seawall at that point in time.
Yep.
So
I agree.
we came up with this language, and I'm uncomfortable with just saying, oh, okay, the homeowner will have a coastal engineer and he'll decide. I'm uncomfortable with that.
Well, how about if we add and be approved by the building commission?
There's got to
I mean-
be some standard that,
Well, but there's not. The lake level changes, the shoreline changes. So I don't think we're going to find a standard, are we?
was going to be more articulable than a coastal engineer's opinion and the undetermined building commission's opinion.
Well, I don't know how you can.
Well, but
I
just,
mean-
as I recall, our conversations, and again, the existing grade. So, a seawall or a shore protection structure is necessary to protect a structure further shoreward of where you're going to put this wall. So if the wall has to be higher than what the grade is, well, the point of this is not to armor the seawall, not armor the shoreline. The point of the ordinance is to protect the shoreline. Now, I know there's a balance, and I think the ordinance does a good point. I mean, we need to protect the shoreline, we need to protect private property. But that's why it said the existing grade. Because if a wall is needed to be 4 feet, 6 feet, 8 feet, 12 feet higher than the existing grade, well, then I think we got a problem with where that structure is. So I'm uncomfortable in eliminating that language.
You'd be hard pressed, Mike, to find a shore protection structure that is only as high as the existing grade on the whole lakefront.
Well, and you're right, and that's what the point of this ordinance is, John, is to get away from what has happened in the past. That's why we passed this ordinance in 2018, is to prevent the armoring of the shoreline. It's to balance the interest of private property against the natural resource of our shoreline. And that's
Letting
why
houses-
we adopted this language in the beginning.
But letting houses fall in the lake isn't balancing that.
I didn't say you let the houses fall in the lake. What I said is the point of this ordinance is to protect the natural resource. And so I'm not comfortable with allowing a third party coastal engineer to tell the town how high a seawall should be.
Well, hey, Mike, as a
Well, then we need to
consideration,
change,
as a check
we
and
need to change
balance.
the language.
Well, who's talking? Is that Chris?
Well, I was just going to point out, is the check and balance that the town has the option based on the fees to hire a coastal engineer as well.
That is true. The ordinance does allow the town to hire, if we don't like what that coastal engineer is saying, the town has the ability at the cost of the homeowner to hire our own coastal engineer.
And so, and I don't know that the town has done that yet, but that is in there. And it seems to me that this language was based on the practicalities of putting it in place versus, and I agree, there was much discussion on why that language, and maybe we need to do more research on that, of whether that's a valid measurement and applicable or not. But it seems to me that the practicalities that I think John was alluding to in putting this ordinance into practice and the projects that have become before it, is it valid or not? So
Rather than
and it doesn't
that,
throw to the need to get variances, right, Mike? So that if they weren't, then it puts them into variance mode, right?
rather than that restrictive of language, Mike, could it possibly say something that, the height needs to be as limited as possible, like we've done with some of the other language in the ordinance, where we say that it's limited by, some other, rather than this restrictive, so that we could say it's the less, or, the limited height to accomplish the goals, or something along that line.
Well, that sounds interesting, but who determines what that is? The coastal
Well,
engineer?
you're back to limiting the building commission's ability to approve a structure unless this language is met. And what I'm trying to tell you is, from a practical standpoint, you cannot say, there's no sense in putting a protection structure up that's at the grade of the existing grade, because it won't do anything. So I think it's restrictive to a fault. Whereas I think if we could limit it somehow or control it, and that's what I think you rely on your building commission for, is to look at the plans and realize whether or not it's within the parameters that we're all trying to accomplish.
And I hear you, and that makes sense. Again, not just a list of horribles here, but my concern is that the building commission says, okay, it's approved by a coastal engineer. That's good enough for me. I've heard those statements made at building commission meetings before that, well, who am I? I'm just a volunteer on a building commission. There's an expert that says this is what's needed. So I hear you, John, and if we can get to some better language that reaches a compromise, I agree with you. I am just concerned about what the potential is to our shoreline by saying it's up to a coastal engineer as to the height of this seawall. So I don't know what the language should be, but John, I think if there's a compromise, then maybe that needs to be developed.
Maybe we can speak about the existing topography or something along that line, Mike, so that we're going back to, some sort of nominal elevation rather than saying that it's that restrictive. I don't know.
Topography is a nice word. I mean, existing grade means topography too. I mean, it's the same word as topography, but I don't have an answer to, other than I'm afraid of this language as we have.
So maybe we add some language in there specifically, and I know you don't like repeating things, but maybe this would be a good place to repeat in there, that if in the judgment of the building commission, this seawall is higher than necessary, the building commission has the ability to hire their own coastal engineer at the cost of the homeowner to render a second opinion.
Well, we said that a little bit ago, and again,
Right.
You might say I'm being too cautious here, but my concern is the building commission member says, "Hey, I got an expert that tells me this is how high it should be." Who am I to question it? So,
But you always can hire another one, right?
Yes, but it would require someone to do that, and that puts the faith in the building commission. And I have faith in the building commission, but I just don't know who's on the building commission next month or 5 years from now. So I have a problem with this section. So the committee can decide to do what they want to do, but I have a problem.
It's Anita. I just want to agree with Mike. I'm just not, I agree if there's concern, I'm not comfortable with it. I just don't want to leave it open-ended or leave it up to the building commission to say we need somebody else. So I agree, maybe a little more research language.
I don't know. I haven't thought of an answer here, but John, you mentioned the word topography. I don't know. You look to the right, you look to the left, you look for contiguous properties. I don't know the answer, but there's got to be some limit, some quasi-objective limit on the height of these walls.
Well, don't all projects have to, there's language in here that discusses what the overall goal of this and of the ordinance in totality is, right? And that it's least restrictive, et cetera. And so those are part of it. So as determined, I don't know, do you piggyback some of that language, but it's in here. So I don't know how many times, I don't think we should repeat them, but they're also incumbent upon them. One of the elements they have to show is it's the least intrusive, right? I'm paraphrasing here, on the shoreline. So
Well, that's a good point. You're right about that, Chris. Again, I'm just uncomfortable with eliminating this language without having something objective in its place.
Yeah, so maybe we look at this language and go back and maybe get something a little more solid proof one way or the other, right? To disprove why the 590 should be there or something definitive, and two, making sure that there's cross references, because there's a lot here that people have to comply with. And so some of it may already be addressed, but to address your concern, maybe it's pointing them, reminding them whatever it is, cross-referencing to those prior sections. And maybe that helps the building commission too. I don't know.
Well, and if we do add language about us hiring another coastal engineer, I would think that would incentivize a homeowner to not let that seawall get too high, because they're not going to want to incur the cost of another coastal engineer.
I mean, I think that depends on whether the building commission is at that moment rubber stamping stuff or actually doing due diligence.
I guess I just heard Chris Willoughby give a suggestion for taking a look at some other provisions in this agreement to see if some better language can be arrived at. Is that right, Chris?
Yeah, I think that, because we might already have that.
So I would propose that we let Chris do that.
Okay. All right.
Next one before you go, number 7.
Yeah.
Right below that. That probably is not necessary, number 7.
Good.
Because that's 154, 160. That's seawall.
Good. That was my comment also. So that's good.
Yeah. Sorry to steal your thunder. Go ahead.
I'm happy to have somebody steal my thunder. I don't like talking all the time. Next one I had is on page 10.
I've got 154, 205 and a couple things there.
We've got some on 204, I think, Anita.
Oh,
Yep,
okay.
I'm still on 204.
Oh, you're on still 204. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. On page 10, 1B, site plan for development of coastal survey, current location, natural order, and high watermark as located delineated by certified delineation consultant, and B, the Army Corps of Engineers elevation.
I think you don't need, with all due respect, Seth, when you say on number 1A, a site plan for the development shall include a survey depicting the current location of the natural ordinary high water mark, you don't need the rest of that verbiage because it's already in your definitions.
Run that by me one more time.
In what we're looking at on the screen right now, which is on page 10, it's a multicolored paragraph.
Yep.
You added some more language in there after the natural ordinary high water mark citation that revisits or restates the definition that you put in above for the natural ordinary high water mark. I'm not sure you need it to restate.
Let me go back. So I'm going to look at my definition of the national ordinary high water mark.
I can roll it back up if
No,
you want.
I've got it up. I can look.
You touch on it in the zone boundary, and you also, I think, touch on it in the definitions, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I don't know that I agree.
So you've got them bound.
NOHWN gives the definition precisely of what it is. But this is specifying that you have to show the NOHWN as delineated, showing that it has to be delineated by a delineation consultant. And then the site plans also have to show where the elevation is.
Yep. You're right. I look at that. I was thinking that you were asking the Army Corps to certify that delineation, but that's not what you're saying.
No, not at all. We're
you're
taking
okay.
the whole concept of the Army Corps approving the delineation out, because essentially the Army Corps has said that for our jurisdiction, we consider it 584 until we tell you otherwise.
Yep.
Or for 2 years.
Okay,
Sorry, for
yep,
2 years.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, no, so what I think this needs to say is that you have a certified delineation consultant who tells you what the NOHWM is, and then as long as that is, they have to put that on the site plan, then they also have to show
Yep.
where the Army Corps' jurisdiction begins
Yep.
by giving the Army Corps elevation, and that's it.
Yeah, I'm good
That way
with
the
that.
building
Okay.
commission can determine both the NOHWM and separately where their jurisdiction is.
Yep. Okay. So if we're okay with that, I'm down to 154.204, 4 and 5. I think those two can be combined into one number 4. Because there's some repetitiveness going on there. In fact, looks to me like 4 could be deleted and 5 would suffice.
Where are we?
154.204, 4 and 5. And I think we can delete 4 and turn 5 into 4.
It's up on the screen now if anybody wants to see it there.
Yep.
It would appear to be correct, Bob.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then in addition to that, at the end of 5, it says extensions may only be granted by the town for good cause shown, but will be limited to the period between Labor Day and Memorial Day. I think we need to say in there, except for emergencies, and then maybe see below for the emergency situation.
I agree with that.
And then I also think maybe we need to say something about no parking on public trust property, this heavy equipment. And I guess I'd refer to John and his expertise on building seawalls, but is there any reason why they should be allowed to park their heavy equipment on the public trust property below the natural ordinary water mark?
There are very few occasions when you need to use the public trust land for access. Sometimes if the weather is such that you want to be down there, sit on ice rather than waiting for spring, there are times when it's expedient.
But we don't control that. That's not right? They're supposed to have DNR, whatever permits are required. I mean, you pointing it out, I don't think hurts, but ultimately it's not our jurisdiction, right?
So we can't limit them from parking?
Well, I think you can say it, but it's by definition, it's the state, right? It's the DNR on the public trust.
Correct.
So we can say it, but I guess what I'm looking at, what's the point? It might be a reminder to them, but it's if they have permission to park and the DNR gave them a permit to do it or whatever, then, we'd be outside of our ordinance. Our ordinance would be meaningless.
Okay, so best to leave that out.
I don't think it's necessary.
Well, I mean, I think it's still in, isn't it?
What's that?
Isn't it still in?
No, I added that. It's not, that there's nothing about not being able to park on the public trust property.
Okay. I mean, it's number 3. Windblown sand may be removed from patios and other things. Never mind.
Yeah, we do have it, Seth. You're right. I mean, there are references about putting things onto public trust, etc. I think that one's probably a little bit different in terms of our sand, but I'm trying to.
Well, number 4, if we're going to eliminate number 4 all the way around, that's where we have a public trust land citation. If we want to have a public trust lands element to our number 5, we need to reintroduce it because it goes away if we take 4 away.
I agree.
But if we can't, like Chris says, we can't really restrict them from parking on the public trust, then.
So I guess your point, just like it says above, right? You're not allowing them to put sand on there. Are they? What's your intention here? Are you trying to remind them that you can't? I guess there's some that just there might not be any teeth or anything behind it. other than calling the DNR, right? If they do, just like above, as Seth pointed out, and in the sand provisions, we're not allowing them to remove sand and put it into the public trust. We probably do have jurisdiction there because we're going from, south of and into the town's jurisdiction and prohibiting that. Would it be any different from the heavy equipment? We're probably overthinking this provision. So,
Well, from a practical standpoint, there's very few places where heavy equipment can access the beach right now. There are a couple of private property owners that allow people to run down, but they do wind up on the public trust lands when they do that. So if we have no way to control it,
well, are they getting permits though that allow that? I mean, and I don't know this answer. Are they getting permits? Presumably, if they're doing some things, they're getting DNR permits to be able to do this work, right? So that I'm making an assumption, but I don't know that the heavy equipment is included in the work that they've proposed and gotten permits from the DNR.
Well, I guess you could simply say any encroachment onto the public trust, for any encroachment onto the public trust, all applicable permits from the whoever, federal, whatever, need to be turned over to the town of Long Beach. I mean, the point is, if someone's down there, right, they just a warning, don't do it. Town's got to report them. So, hey, say if you're on the public trust property, you have to produce the necessary permits.
And I think that we show that as part in other language in this ordinance that they have to have all applicable.
Yep, that's right.
That is there. All right, so I guess if we can't do anything about it, we probably shouldn't talk about parking.
Right. Maybe not about parking, but they definitely need to give you the permit showing that they have the authority to do it.
Right, and that is in another part of the ordinance.
Okay.
Okay,
And it's incumbent upon the building commission to make sure they see those permits.
absolutely. Yep. Anita, you had some changes to 205.
I do, just a simple one, just stop right there, Jen. Sentence 1 talks about uppercase, a protection structure permit. This is just a simple little thing. And then when you go to number 3, permit is, it's not capitalized. So that was something just simple, just for consistency. And then this is just my trying to figure out the language. When we go down to number 7, E and F, it talks about the protection structure is the least likely alternative or option. So when you go to E, it seems to me it might, I don't know, I guess when I read F, where it says the protection structure is the least likely alternative or option to adverse, I believe it should be to cause adverse effects. It's missing a word. But it seems to me E and F would be better off reading the protection structure is the alternative or option least likely to cause. And I don't know, that was just me trying to figure those two out, but it seemed number F is missing a word.
I think they could be combined. I think you're right, Anita. They could be combined and be a little less verbose.
Right, or they can stay E and F, just clean them up. You have to add in a word to cause adverse effects in F, and then, if you want to flip-flop least alternative or option least likely to cause. So F is missing a word.
Anita's right. F is missing a word. However you want to do these
Right.
are fine. Just for sake of background, I believe, if my memory is correct, that this section 7, A through whatever, is basically, Bob, you may recall a lift from the Indiana coastal protections guidelines. So that's why each one of these were here.
Yeah.
I think there is a word missing in F, though. You're right.
Okay.
Can I go back one page? On 205, let's see here, 6. I'm sorry, I think I'm in the wrong place. Yeah, it's proved I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong place. Never mind. Keep going. We're down in 206.
I'm in, well, still in 205 on number 4. There's an and
No,
or.
I'm sorry, we're still in
Yeah, I'm still in 205.
205.
There's an and or that probably should be moved actually in front of structural engineer. The and or was crossed off, and I think the and or behind it should just be moved up there. Town's coastal engineer delineation.
Which letter on 6?
This is 205-4. The deposit shall be payable, used to pay and review the approval process performed by the town's coastal engineer, delineation consultant, and it should be and or structural engineer as determined necessary. Just a simple change.
Before you go off there, I have a question.
Yep.
I don't know what page is in front of us here. 2056.C. If you want to scroll down a little bit, John Wall.
There you are, Mike. Soil borings?
Yeah, soil borings. Just to explain to me,
Sorry.
the original 2018 agreement required soil borings. Why are we no longer requiring them?
Soil borings require a fairly significant sized piece of equipment to do them. If you're actually talking about soil borings, you could do soil samples by hand, but if you're talking about soil borings, generally it's a rig with a big auger attachment on it, and they've got to be able to get that rig down to wherever you're trying to do your borings. So in the nomenclature of the construction business, soil borings would require that you had access for a straight truck of significant size. An awful lot of the time when you're dealing with these types of areas, for instance, at stop 29 where we're doing our own work, or stop 23 or 21, it's not practicable to get that sort of a rig down to where you would want to do borings. It's a great thing to have them, Mike. It's just from a practical standpoint, if we're mandating them, it's not possible in some applications.
So I guess what you're saying is, from even though it's been in the ordinance since 2018, we haven't been requiring.
You can't do them. I mean, you can require them all you want, but it's physically impossible.
Okay, well, I mean, it's not something that's ever been called to our attention before. I mean, the ordinance has been on the books since 2018. So no, I'm not debating what you're saying. I'm just asking a question. So if anybody else has any questions that's fine. I understand what you said.
Back to 4 again. It says here, an overage will result in it being payable by the applicant to the town, will be used to pay the engineers. It should be and or delineation consultant, because the town also can hire their own delineation consultant. Then the next sentence says the application shall be responsible for all the fees of his chosen coastal engineer and delineation consultant. So we want to.
I put that in there after.
Yeah, okay, good.
I don't disagree with what you said. I just don't know where you are.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on 205-4, further on down in that paragraph.
Okay.
We just want to make sure that the homeowners understand that they're going to have to pay if the town hires engineers,
We're back up on.
or if we hire our own delineation consultant.
Okay.
Anything else on that? Then in 6B,
Did we lose John Wall or something? We lost the document.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Hold on. Yeah, hold on a second. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. I don't know whatever happened. This thing I'll have you back up here in a second. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm on 205-6B, and there's a paragraph in there, or there's a big purple part that got crossed off. However, if building commission is sole discretion finds the Army Corps of Engineers elevation is outdated because of lake level changes, applicant may be required to obtain updated delineation in conformance with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers standard and shall be paid for out of the deposit. I think we should force, if the lake level changes and a homeowner wants to build a seawall, then they should have to pay. When I talked to the delineation consultant, she wasn't sure if the Army Corps was going to come in and do delineations and change their elevation, or if they were going to hire her or some other delineation consultant or to do it. I don't think, and if the town goes to the Army Corps and says, we think that the lake levels change, we need a new elevation, I don't think the town should be on the hook to pay delineation consultants to do that. I think that the homeowner should have to pay for that. And so go ahead.
So I mean, I get conceptually what you're saying. I think as an initial matter, that the letter from the Army Corps of Engineers said that their elevation is good for a period of 2 years. So they're saying that their jurisdiction is 584 for a period of 2 years.
Yep.
I think separately, and what this provision was really addressing was that the Army Corps of Engineers is not delineating the NOHWM, the delineation consultant is.
Yep.
And so if you want to include a provision that, you know, if somehow you think that the Army Corps elevation, which is irrelevant to the NOHWM, is wrong, that you want to use their deposit to go have it redetermined, I have no conceptual problem with that. But I also don't think it's germane to the analysis of where the NOHWM is.
No, this has nothing to do with what we're saying. You can't build a seawall below their elevation, right?
Right.
No, that's not what we're saying.
No, we're saying you can't build a seawall below the natural ordinary high water mark.
I don't believe you can build it below their elevation either,
Yes,
right?
you can. Yes, you can.
Well,
As we discussed at length at our last meeting, the line between public and private property is not 584. It's not the Army Corps' number that's for their jurisdiction purposes. The line for town permitting is the natural ordinary high water mark. That's the distinguishing point between public and private property.
right.
Okay.
So the town can't permit a structure below 584.
Absolutely.
Right.
But in theory, if they could prove that the NOHWM was below that, they could receive a permit from some other person or some other entity.
And do we want them able to do that?
Together with the town. I don't know. We can't approve permits, so we don't have the jurisdiction to.
Right.
Right.
So,
And
you know, my point is that we can't be creating a law that is illegal from the moment that we write it.
but if the lake level goes down and then 584 becomes 584 stays the same, right? That's their jurisdiction doesn't change unless they redo it. And so the lake level goes down, natural ordinary high water mark goes down, then the natural ordinary high water mark could be well below 584.
It could be, yeah. And likely one day will be.
And
Wouldn't it be in our best interest then to say you aren't going to be able to build below the Army Corps' elevation, and therefore wouldn't it be in our best interest to require them to come up with a new elevation that's going to be lower?
you will be sued by the property owner in that case.
I think
The
what
line between public and private property is the natural ordinary high water mark. If the natural ordinary high water mark is at 580, okay? And the Army Corps' jurisdiction is at 584. The town can permit down to 580 because that's town property. It's private property. That's town jurisdiction. The town can issue the permit down to 580. Now, they're also going to need a permit for the property between 580 and 584 because that's jurisdiction of the Army Corps. But public and private property has nothing to do with the Army Corps' determination of jurisdiction.
Okay.
And I mean, I kind of feel like we're talking past each other a little bit, because I'm fine conceptually of making a homeowner pay, like if the situation that you described is going to happen, and it will eventually happen, Bob, where the town, I mean, the NOHWN will drop lower, and if the Army Corps hasn't changed this elevation of its jurisdictional claim, then and they haven't come in voluntarily and changed it, which they likely won't, or if it's past 2 years from now when that determination of the elevation has expired explicitly by their letter, then the town shouldn't be in a position that they have to pay for it. Like the homeowner
The
pays.
town's not paying for anything, Seth.
No,
There's nothing to pay for.
no, there is something to pay for.
No, there isn't. If the natural ordinary watermark is at 580 in my example, that's the boundary for town jurisdiction. That's the boundary for the town to issue a permit. Now, if the Army Corps' jurisdiction is at 584, 586, 579, that's irrelevant for the town. Now, the homeowner might need an additional permit from the Army Corps between 580 and 584. That has no bearing on the town, other than to make sure the property owner gets that permit.
I don't know that I agree with you, because the town's on notice as of right now that the Army Corps claims jurisdiction at 584.
Jurisdiction, correct. Jurisdiction.
So they can't grant a permit.
The homeowner needs a permit for anything below 584.
From the Army Corps of Engineers, correct?
Yes, if it's
So
private.
what does the town do? And part of the town ordinance is that you have demonstrated your permission from all other jurisdictions or all other agencies in order for us to grant you your petition, for us to grant you your permit. What do we do in 2 years when that jurisdictional statement has expired and the town's requiring somebody to come in and show that they have permits from all the other relevant agencies? What standard are they going to use if they're granting a permit at 580? They know that, as of 1 month ago, the Army Corps claimed 584. We're granting one at 580, but we don't know for sure what the Army Corps thinks their jurisdiction is. So we need that person to go confirm it.
Well, that's right. That's the homeowner's obligation.
Permit.
Yeah, it's the homeowner's obligation.
No, I agree, but that's why, including in our statute, that they're going to pay for it is a good thing.
Well, I don't care who pays for what. I guess maybe, I'm sorry if I got off track here.
Okay.
I just wanted to make it clear that the Army Corps jurisdiction does not have any bearing on the town's ability to issue a permit.
I agree.
No, right. No, we all agree on that. It's just, if the lake level changes, we want the homeowners to pay for the new delineation for the Army Corps, if the Army Corps is going to require someone to pay for it.
Correct. Okay.
So what I'd like to do is just basically include that language that was crossed off.
Well, I don't know. Well, that language is not the same. I think we have to incorporate the new language together with see.
Take a look at the language. I think it does what we
want.
want.
Army Corps of Engineer delineation to Army Corps of Engineer elevation.
Right. Yeah, I crossed off delineation, put in elevation.
And then we need to add or expiration to the lake level changes or the expiration.
And you said that it expires in 2 years, but does it in fact say it? Did their letter in fact say it would expire?
It says it says these elevations are good for a period of 2 years.
Okay, well, I guess that expires then. But I don't know that we can rely on the Army Corps to come back in and give us another letter in 2 years.
You definitely cannot. I agree with that.
So I think if we
That's
don't
why I
have
think
that
it's a
letter,
problem.
we need the next homeowner who wants to build a seawall to do a delineation and send it to the Army Corps.
Right.
So that was the idea of leaving it in.
Okay.
And if the lake changes a whole lot, then I think that the Army Corps will do it sooner.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's gonna be on an as-needed basis, but I don't think that the Army Corps of Engineers is gonna unilaterally just come in and redelineate.
I don't think they're gonna do it unless we put their toes to the fire. So I guess my advice, my thought was to re-include that sentence, except to change delineation to elevation.
Yeah, I mean, just make the defined terms correct, and then I would
Yeah.
also add or expiration to the lake level change.
Lake level changes or
The
expiration. Yeah, that's
expiration of the
good.
elevation. Yeah.
Got that, Chris?
No. So give me the language that you'd like.
Okay, so
Okay.
that sentence that says, however, if the building commission in its
Mhm.
sole discretion.
I'm there.
Okay, and so the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, cross off delineation, change it to elevation,
Have that.
and then it's outdated because of lake level changes or expiration.
Okay.
Of the last formal elevation.
Yeah, I don't know.
Delineation's got to be changed a couple more times, that's all.
Yeah, correct. And U.S. Army Corps of Engineers defined term needs to be fixed.
Well, actually, yeah, updated, they actually do have to get an updated delineation because that delineation is what, and then what I added there was obtain an updated delineation for the Army Corps. If the Army Corps is going to require it. Maybe the Army Corps is going to come in and do their own delineations, but I wouldn't bet on it.
So you wanted to say for the Army Corps in conformance with its standards?
Maybe for the Army Corps if required, parentheses, if required. I mean, I don't know what the Army Corps is going to require.
And getting rid of the rest of that language?
In conformance with the Army Corps, I understand. I think we want that whole sentence to be reinstated with those changes.
So in conformance with its standard then, is that?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, I'm good with that.
I mean, I don't know that we need the Army Corps to delineate, to provide an elevation in accordance with its own standards.
Well, no, we're saying that the homeowner's required, right? For the US, if required.
The building commission using the homeowner's funds is required.
Yep. Everybody good?
Yep.
So I'm up to 206. And the first full paragraph there, all the stuff that's in there, I think is in the next paragraph. And so I think we should delete, my thought was to delete the first paragraph.
Is that page 14?
Page 14, yeah.
Okay.
Which first paragraph are you talking about?
Underneath where
So
it's
you're
crossed off.
pulling the whole paragraph that's on.
Yeah. And then,
So you're talking about the red first paragraph or the purple one or the gray one?
it's purple. I think it's purple. I don't know. I'm colorblind. It's
Yeah,
not got a
that's-
line through it.
We do
That's
say,
what Seth just put in, right, Seth?
Yeah.
Where it says upon application by prospective permittee.
well, we're in 206.
Yes.
Bottom of page 14.
Yeah.
We're in 206. We're in non-conforming uses.
Yep.
But if you look beyond that bottom of 14 to the next page, we're basically saying the same thing. I think that's what Bob's saying.
Yeah.
They're very duplicative. This last paragraph on 14, and then the other purple paragraph that I'm showing you on 15.
Oh.
On page, the same thing twice, I believe.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, I think I was just undoing.
Yep.
I mean, I think basically what this was, I was just changing the color and undoing the strikeout of it. If that's true, I mean, we obviously don't need to say anything twice.
Yep.
But I need to be able to confirm it.
Seth, I think you crossed off the A with the intent of that whole thing going away. See how you crossed out the A?
Yes. Was there a B before?
Or were you just trying to renumber?
Yeah,
That's all gone as well.
If they
So I
say
think
the same
I
thing.
can't tell whether you were.
Yeah, I honestly, and like I'm sitting here looking at this at this point.
I am too.
Exception. I mean, I think as long as we're establishing that an exception can be granted and setting the standard for that, we definitely don't need to say anything twice. I'm just trying to see what the difference between the first purple paragraph and the second one are.
I think they're identical.
Yeah, I think maybe what I thought was the first one, the first paragraph was establishing the right of the building commission to grant an exception, and the second one was establishing the standard. So I think they can just be combined.
Yep.
To the extent necessary.
Then other changes I had in there, looking at that second paragraph, protection structure will be designed, constructed, maintained to be as protective, will not be located lakeward of the existing seawall. I think we should add there, but may be landward. The last thing I think we want to do is if someone's replacing a seawall, is force them to put it back in exactly the same spot, especially if they want to move it landward. We should let them move it landward if they want to. Anybody disagree with that?
You're on B, right?
I am on A.
Or A, okay.
Well, A is crossed off. It's on A crossed off, actually, so
Oh,
it's
got
not
it,
really
right.
A. Okay. But I think if they want to move it back, God let them. And the other thing I think we should probably add to that is if a new seawall is to be placed landward of an old seawall, the old one needs to be removed.
Mm.
Last thing we need is an old seawall sitting out there.
Well, I thought the standard there was a difference between the standard for building a new seawall and replacing an old one, right?
Yes. We told them they could replace them, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Now, that kind of raises a more thorny issue, and that is you're replacing a seawall, and okay, so your seawall's fallen down, or it's got a hole in it, or whatever, and you want to replace it, and yet you're requiring a new delineation, and your new delineation is liable to be behind that old seawall. The intent of this ordinance to allow them to replace it was to allow them to replace it. However, if that natural ordinary high water marks move back 20 feet, then that intent is going to be gone, because you remember the business about the Army, not the Army Corps, the DNR saying that the natural ordinary high water mark is the foot of an existing seawall. And I know we've got people on this committee who don't agree with that. But I guess this whole issue of replacing a seawall, brings that issue back to the fore again.
Well, I think there's a difference between the repair of an existing seawall and the replacement of an existing seawall, because the replacement of an existing seawall is the construction of a new seawall. So if you're going to repair it, repair it. If you're going to replace it, you're building a new one.
Well, I'm not sure there's any real way, John, you can help us out here, but is there any way to repair a seawall that's failing? I mean, I think the language said repair and replace.
Well, but that's what the statute says, right? It's, I mean, we can't change what our literally the Indiana state legislation says unless we go change the Indiana state legislation.
So if my seawall is falling down and the foot of that seawall is below the natural ordinary watermark, can I replace it?
I think you can replace it, but you're going to have to replace it inside of the existing seawall.
Yes.
Yeah, and you're going to have to replace it inside the existing seawall in conformity with the construction of a new seawall. But you should definitely be able to replace it, right?
Well,
but the problem is, Seth, when you say that you can replace it landward of an existing seawall, that's what we want. And in some cases, we probably could have negotiated closer to their homes, but the language states that you can only do it precisely where it used to be. And that's where we got hung up when those guys at 23. So it'd be nice if we could say, yes, you can put it landward of your existing wall.
right. But
Okay.
however, there's some times when that may still be below the natural ordinary high watermark.
I mean, I'm rusty enough on this that I'd have to go back and read the language of the statute again. And I was, I kind of honed up for the changes we have here, but I don't know that one. I mean, I think it just needs to track the language of what the statute says. But
I think
I agree with you that landward would be an appropriate interpretation of the exact same place. I think the exact same place is an unreasonable request because it's literally impossible. So you have to reasonably interpret the intent of Congress, or reasonably interpret the intent of the legislature, which would be landward.
Right.
Unless
Okay,
it's
so-
construction of a brand new seawall, in which case there's a completely different standard.
And so what if that lot doesn't give you a place landward of that failing seawall that is above the natural ordinary watermark to put in your replacement? Because that's going to happen. If the lake keeps going up, it's certainly going to happen. I mean, I guess my thought is if they want to move it back, God bless them. But there are some people who aren't going to be able to move it back and stay above the natural ordinary watermark and still protect their homes.
What do you mean?
So if you got a seawall that's failing, and we say, okay, you can replace it, and you can replace it either in the same spot or landward. But if that delineator comes in and says, oh, I don't agree that the foot of the seawall is the natural ordinary watermark, and that's certainly debatable, then, and they say that natural ordinary watermark is 20 feet behind the seawall, and their house is 15 feet behind the seawall, they've got no place to put it.
Well, we have the 5 foot from the existing structure. Don't we have that standard as well?
That was eliminated.
Yeah, we said as close as possible in this change.
Yeah, that's in B below.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. You're telling me there's houses located below the natural. There's houses located below the NOHWM. I think then that's an obvious situation where you could have an exception. Because,
Okay.
Right? But I don't know that the standard is to put the seawall directly behind the existing seawall that's already failing. I think it's to bring it in landward.
Yep.
I mean, under some other standard that protects the house, but also isn't going to extend into the water, or isn't going to extend into the public trust lands. That's the whole purpose of the legislation was to bring a new seawall back within the borders of where the public trust exists or where the private property exists.
Right. And that's
I mean,
all based on the natural ordinary watermark.
It is based on the natural ordinary high water mark. But that's why we had the 5 foot structure built in as well that you've eliminated.
Well,
First of
we didn't
all-
eliminate it. We said as close as possible because 5
Okay.
feet wasn't practical. Couldn't be done.
Okay, that's fine.
That's correct. 5 foot is impractical.
Okay.
It's not possible.
So
But
then, you have a solution for it then, as close as practical.
That's correct, but that's not what this clause reads, Seth. It says will not be located lakeward of the NOHM. And if you say that, that's where we get into problems when we have these situations of existing
okay.
walls.
I agree with that, but then you said, and it still has to, you wanted to add provisions that it would be landward of the existing structure.
Yep,
But then
correct.
also as close as reasonably practicable to protect.
Okay, so here's what we could do then. We could say, okay, so your seawall's failing. You need to put that new seawall either in the same spot or landward. Well, and in the same spot's not practical because you can't pound down through an old seawall. So if you're going to go landward, you need to go as close as possible to the structure. If there is no way to put that seawall above the natural ordinary high water mark, it has to be as close as possible to the primary use structure.
That's the only way to harmonize what the legislature said and then actually protecting somebody's house, right?
Okay. So,
I mean,
Chris,
that's me thinking about this for the 30 seconds that this has been kind of brought to my attention. So, but I don't see how you can not enforce what the legislature says, but I can also understand that, there may be situations where somebody's house will fall in the lake based on the legislative standard that we're interpreting. That's the only way I can think of to harmonize it is if their house is above, if their house if their house is below the NOHWM, then the protective structure has to be as close as reasonably practical to their structure in order to grant the exception.
got that, Chris?
I still think you're at that point breaching the legislative intent, but you're also enforcing the spirit of the legislation, which is to protect their house, but also protecting the public trust. I think this is in my mind,
and recognizing the fact that the lake levels change. The beach used to be in Westville.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's got to be a way to do it, but I'd have to.
You're that old, Bob.
I'm sorry, say what?
I didn't think you were that old.
Okay, so back to my point, what your language says specifically, and are you saying, Seth, that the state code makes us put in that subparagraph C that says will not be located lakeward of the NOHM?
Yeah, that tracks the statute. But I think you can put an exception in there unless, the situation where the existing structure, I'm not talking about the seawall, I'm talking about the person's house, is below the NOHWM, in which case the structure, the protective structure must be as close as reasonably practical to the existing principal structure. Because this should only come into play if the house is actually below the NOHWM, which I can't believe is going to be commonplace. It's got to be the exception to the rule, but you guys are seeing this day to day, and I'm just interpreting what the legislature's saying. So you can tell me.
We're seeing shore protection structures in the public trust if you use the NOHM as it's written. So there are actually shore protection structures, and that's where, no sense going over what we all know, and that was when these structures were allowed to be built out into the lake. So that's where we have these issues, where the structures are beyond the NOHM, and we're having to deal with it. I'm talking about the protective structures, not the homes.
Okay.
So how about something like this?
I don't know that well, I mean, in that case, I mean, the hypothetical that Bob gave us was that the house itself was below the NOHWM.
Or there's no room in there. So how does this sound? Will not be located lakeward of the natural ordinary high water mark unless there is no land above the natural ordinary high water mark. Then it must be as close as possible to the primary use structure.
I'd have to read that. I mean, this is, I mean, you presented a problem that that we didn't necessarily know existed. I'm more than happy to pay quick attention to it, but I have to think my way through that.
Okay. So Chris, maybe we can put something like that together and then we'll have everybody look at it. Because we have seen that, and if that lake keeps going up, we're going to see that more and more.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I mean, it's a real problem that needs to be addressed, but I just can't address it by talking through language out loud.
While we're on this paragraph, do we need as the provisions of that provision in the middle of that paragraph, or is that seems not correct grammatically?
That's that's probably not correct.
Okay, next one I've got is under stairs. What did I do?
206.1 is stairs.
206.1. So we talk about construction of stairs over seawalls and stairs over dunes. What do we want to do about stairs over revetments? We're saying that you can't put it over the seawalls because we aren't crazy about stairs coming over seawalls onto the public trust property. And we're trying to discourage seawalls. We say you can put them over dunes because we think dunes are a preferred way to protect the beach, protect the property. Revetments is kind of in between. So, we've got homeowners who want to put stairs down because they don't want to have to walk to the public stop. I personally am not terribly sympathetic to that, but that's just me. If somebody decides they want to put in just a revetment, do we let them put stairs down onto the beach?
I think definitely no. Not
Okay.
if it's encroach in any way into the public trust.
A revetment and a seawall are basically the same thing. They prevent access.
Yeah, I mean, shouldn't we say shore protection structure?
Or we could just say it in B, construction or repairs of stairs over seawalls or revetments onto the public trust.
Or you do what Chris said, you use the word protection structure.
Yep. Either way, I'm fine with that. So Chris, whatever language you think is best there, I think they both say the same thing.
One quick comment, once the lake goes down, this will be a little tougher to enforce because they'll be on their own property. So we're making a pretty strong statement here, but once the ordinary high water mark starts marching north, we're probably not going to be able to stay with this language.
Yeah, but then when a big storm comes and the natural ordinary high water mark moves up and the storm takes away their stairs, we'll be able to stop it again. So this will be a cycle.
Well, I guess, you're both making good points. Like, what do we do when inevitably, John's right, that the NOHWM goes down and then they're entitled to build stairs off of their seawall or off of their protection structure, and then it goes back up and knocks them out? Are we going to let them repair them and put them back?
Well, there is language that says "and" onto the public trust. So, Is there an exception with?
Okay. Hold on. I'm going to let you finish what you were going to say.
Plus, we also limit them to 106.6 feet from Lakeshore Drive, right?
But what if it's when it has built, it's not on the public trust, it's on their private property, and then the water rises and it goes it becomes, it becomes the public trust again. And then their stairs are destroyed. Do we let them rebuild their stairs at that point?
Well,
No,
it says
no.
legally existing, right? So they were legally.
Yeah, but we also say repair or replacement too, right? We tell them they can't. We
It
say
says,
construction of new permanent stairs or the repair or replacement of legally existing stairs.
and they would have been legally existing, presuming they got permissions and all of that, right?
Right, but we're
Are
saying
all
that's
strictly
prohibited.
prohibited. Mhm.
So we prohibited all of it.
Well, I think there's a distinction between legally existing and legally constructed, right?
Right, but we're saying you can't repair them.
Okay.
So I think
Okay.
the next big storm solves that problem.
So I guess the issue, though, is back to John's point, is there's a lot of process in this. And so do you try to figure out some way to be a little bit fluid here? Because, next big storm, who knows? But to go back and change that, are we regulating something that will change? And so is there a way to be a little more flexible in this to each of those examples? So I don't know that we're going to solve that today, but.
Well, I think if they build the stairs on their property, they can do that as long as it's, not further out than 106.6. Then the lake level comes up, pulls that stair out, natural ordinary water comes up, public trust property is there, they can't rebuild it. So I think this actually is pretty fluid I don't think we're gonna help when the lake comes down to Westville, but at least for the next foreseeable future, I think this is sort of fluid.
You've got a lot of duplicative language in B that's already in A for one, so I think it needs to be tightened up a little bit.
So when the stairs go off into the lake, I know we had the metal stairs at the one house, I think the Clifford house. Who's responsible for going and getting that out of the lake? Or do we just ignore it and hope that, oh, well, they're gone when the storm takes the stairs?
We could call the Army Corps.
All right.
Okay, so then I'm down to 207. Anything else anybody's got? 207A3, accompanied by payment of the required permit application fee and required deposits. We've added a lot of deposits that need to be paid. We need to reference those again. In fact, I put in there C 154.205 points 1 through 4. And then, Seth, I'm not quite sure on 154.207 B1.
Okay, so you had deleted the language about sending everything to all town residents via email listserv system, and it kind of baffled me. So I just assumed, without asking you, that there was some issue with like the onerous task of emailing everybody. And I know these things have to be posted to the website anyway. So
Yep.
Why not notify everybody who's subscribed to the town's website, and then like the news and events listserv? That can't be more than another click of a button. I'm still of the thought that we should definitely be emailing everybody these emergency permits because they're pretty critical town changes. But if that's somehow too onerous for the employees of the town, then whoever's updating the website can just add an additional click.
Okay.
And anybody who subscribed to the news and events thing on the website can get emailed.
And what is the providing a link? I don't understand what I think we want to not make the job too onerous for the town down the road.
Okay,
And
so they load the permit onto the town's website, and
Okay.
then they click copy link, and they click news and events, and they send it to everybody who signed up for the email. It's literally 2 clicks.
Signed up for what email?
No, it's not, Seth. If you have to make a new link for every application, that's pretty onerous.
No, John, you're wrong. If you have to load every application onto the website, then it's very easy to create a link to that application and then send it via the news and events section. I mean, it's literally
Link for every application? That doesn't make sense.
No, for every emergency application, and it makes absolute sense. It's critical. Notifying the town residents about the existence of emergency application that needs to be granted within 10 days is critical.
Well, one thing I'll tell you is that the email list is not all encompassing as it exists.
Well,
So you're not
that's why
reading
that's why I'm saying don't worry about the email. Worry about people who want to know these things will be subscribed to the news and events listserv on the town website. Whoever's updating and loading the application onto the town website can take one additional step that will take less than 2 minutes to include this in a news and events update. And then it will go to everybody who's already on the listserv and who's subscribed to it. It is the least onerous notice that I can think of. It's literally the easiest thing in the world.
Somebody's going to have to show
on his own website.
Show our webmaster how to do that, because I don't think she's aware of how that would work. I mean, I'm fine with posting it on the website, but I'm not sure she has the capability to.
If she doesn't
Set
want, if she's loading it to the website, she can just prepare a new news and events. It's just like sending out like she does to the APC minutes, right? So if you're subscribed to it, you're like, if she's sending out the APC minutes and posting them to the website, like if you're subscribed to news and events, then she can just say there was a new emergency application posted today. It is here. Like here's the web domain. I mean, it's like sending somebody a Google link.
You're saying there's a subscription to our news and events?
Yeah.
I'm not aware of that.
Okay. We'll go to the Long Beach, Indiana.gov.
I'll research that about a subscription to the news and events.
Subscribe to e-alerts. It's in the top right-hand corner.
Okay.
And then you can put in your email address, confirm your email address, and
Okay.
you can get urgent alerts under the town alerts or news and announcements under the town news and announcement. Then you confirm you're not a robot, and then you're subscribed.
Okay. Let me check on that, because I'm not familiar with that, and I'll do some research and we'll have that for the next meeting.
So that there's a record of this.
Okay. Okay. All right, I'll check on that and see.
It's been there for quite a while. I know on the park board, on the minutes, I always put in there to get into, different Zoom meetings and things. But yeah, and when Bill Defuniak sends out those emails, I think that's the list that he uses and a list that Nick Meyer had been putting together.
First of all, you have to realize how much paperwork comes in with one of these applications. We're talking about, full-size drawings. They've got to be shrunk. I mean, I don't think it's as easy as you think, Seth.
Hold on, no, but you already had on there all application and all materials submitted with it on the town's website. They're already required by your own language that it be included on the town's website. So it's all got to be uploaded. So all I'm saying is you're going to take the additional step of, after you've uploaded it to the website, to click the domain and then cut and paste it into an email alert. It takes under a minute.
Bob, are we putting full-size drawings on all these applications on the website? I'm not familiar.
We're not, well, we haven't had any emergency permit requests that have required that at this point. But we do get PDFs of everything. We require PDFs. So maybe it won't be too onerous. Let's check on it and we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was just editing your language to make it easier for the town to be aware of an application. If you think that putting it on the website is too onerous, then we need to come up with some other solution. But I think letting the town know that an application exists and the contents of those applications is critical.
Yeah, no, I'm good with putting it on the website. I wasn't aware that we had a subscription that would send something out, but I'll check on that.
Okay, well, I guess the chats are disabled, so I can't send it.
I know Meg is
Oh, Meg's here.
Hi,
Meg's here.
hi, everybody. I know that we can send an email blast, Seth, as you're saying. I do not know if you could send a PDF through that.
I'm not,
Typically, that's a news and events section on the website.
Yeah.
And
I'm not suggesting you send a PDF. I'm suggesting you send a link to the location on the town's website where the documents exist.
sure. Again, that would be up to you guys with the language if you want the full PDFs on there. The typical, and obviously this is emergency, which is different from a typical, let's say, BZA permit or building commission permit. The only things that go on the website currently are the minutes and agendas. Any permits, like, and again, you guys could change this for emergency, but everything is filed at the clerk's office, and people would do a request for all of that information through the clerk's office. So we could do an email blast that tells everybody there's an emergency situation going on. And then if you want that information personally, you go and you can receive the hard copy of everything. Deanna or myself would probably make the copy.
Okay.
That's typically how it's done. Again, for emergency stuff, everything is of public record, which means a hard copy is stored at the clerk's office.
Okay, so
We have not ever led people to those types of documents through the website. So just that, I'm just letting you guys know that's the website
that's
is
good.
capable of, obviously we can lead to a link, we can do that, but those email blasts, I don't know if they're capable of that. So
okay. Do you know, have we ever loaded because the old emergency permit application process required that we posted this information on the town's website. Have we not done that?
are you talking just for emergency stuff?
Just the emergency stuff, yeah.
I don't think we've had anything posted. We haven't had any emergencies since last year.
Okay. So
And the website, Seth, it was new as of maybe a year or less even.
Okay.
So it's just finicky with the links. That's what Nick Meyer, I didn't have training on the website at all. So I know how to do simple things that he showed me, and I figured out a few things we have a contact. I just haven't reached out to him for anything yet. So I do know how to send a blast. I just, I can't imagine why we couldn't put a link in there, but typically all it is it just sends out what you put into the news and events section. So just keep that in mind for, obviously we can, but we don't upload those types of PDFs. We could to that news and events, or I guess we could try and create a section for emergency things like you guys are referring to.
Yeah, I mean, right now there's town alerts. You could do it on an urgent alert. Town alerts and town news and announcements are your two options. But I'm just concerned.
Is alert, I mean, all it is just an email blast based on the emails that Bill DeFuniak has.
Yeah, okay.
So that's all it is. All you do is direct the website to send whatever's typed into the little section out to everybody. So it may be able to do a PDF or the link. I mean, I'm sure it could. I just don't know if people could click on that link and get to anything. All it does is send an email. That's it.
Okay. I mean, I guess
It's not as it's not very advanced.
Okay. So the two concerns I have here are that we have an existing statute that says that we're going to load all these things to all the emergency applications to the town website, but we clearly have no process by which that is ever going to happen. Because
no, not that it's not ever going to happen, but we have not done it yet.
Okay, well, we haven't done it because we haven't gotten one, but we also had no plan in place for if we got one. Because John, you're telling me that these things are hundreds of pages or some onerous amount that we can't scan and post it on the website, even though the law requires, the current ordinance requires us to do it, and then we don't have any plan in place to notify people that this application exists, even though the current ordinance requires it. I'm literally trying to make that easier by this language, but I think the notice of an emergency permit application, when one eventually comes in, the notice to the constituency is one of the biggest parts of it, so that they can know the contents of it. And we don't have any plan in place to do that. And we're saying that not only can we not comply with the existing law, we couldn't comply with an easier one without.
We can comply with it. It would simply be me sending that blast saying what's going on, and then finding a spot on the website or creating one along where the minutes and agendas are that says, it's me scanning all of that and uploading it. That's
Okay.
it. There's no simpler way. That's all it is. So, if
Okay.
that the requirement is, then we will do that. But for everything else the town does, you go to the clerk's office and you do an information request.
And then how is that information sent to? If I went in tomorrow and asked for,
They pick it up, or
But
I
can
mean, we do
Okay.
scan everything, so
Yeah.
there are electronic copies, I believe, of pretty much everything.
Yeah, because that's the scary
Can I
thing.
suggest what we do with the BZA? I mean, in the notices, it says they're available for review and inspection, and as John pointed out, some of these things are pretty large. So to scan them, I think that some of them are impossible to see when you shrink them and put them in that. So
All right, but I mean,
making them available, the notice, Seth, you're 100%. I mean, that's the intention here, right? That is the point, to bring it to people's attention and for them to gather the documents. But, the BZA level, they don't get a copy. Those who are entitled to notice don't get copies. They're available for inspection.
Well, okay, first of all, we don't live in the 90s and we don't need to be available for inspection. Plus, Bob already said that you're required to submit a PDF, which means it's already scanned, which means you already have an electronic copy, which means you're just literally loading files to a website.
Seth,
So
and
why don't we-
Anita, what if we let Meg, because as she mentioned, she's learned this on her own.
Yeah.
What if we stepped back? I mean, I understand, yes, you're right, we're living now, but Meg is saying that there probably is a way that this can be done. Can we task her with trying to reach out to the contact or to Nick Meyer, or for training to figure out, like you said, even if we don't have hundreds of pages, but so that the email, the alert goes out, and then maybe the application. So maybe we can, leave the language and let Meg see what she can find out.
I love that idea, because the whole goal of this language was to make it easier on the town.
Correct,
to
right.
provide the notice. Like, I'm not married to this concept. I was going through my head like, this is what's the easiest thing they could do? It's like, they've already got to load it to the website, provide a link. That way everybody's got notice. So,
Right,
and whatever, frankly, whatever Meg or whatever the town says is the easiest way for them to provide all town residents, or the people who care and will actually go subscribe to something, notice is what I think the standard should be. Like, we're not trying to put a burden on the town or the town employees. We're trying to make it so that the town can easily notify all of its residents without having to send out a 3,000 page mailer, right?
Okay,
Maybe the
Meg, is
easiest
that
thing-
something that you can look into?
Sure.
Okay.
And then, so is the consensus, for my understanding, it would be a lot to, per se, upload every building commission file. So we don't currently do anything like that. If this is just for these emergency seawall situations, which might be one or two a year, or, one every couple of years, whatever, that's obviously not a problem. So, again, it would I think the only way to do it would be to put some sort of section with the minutes and agendas. So
Yeah, the other option is to
would be
avoid,
directed where to get it.
and we could simply avoid the website completely and send out a blast email with the PDF of the permit application.
Which is the current standard.
That might be the simplest thing to do.
That's assuming all your emergency permits are gonna come in on PDFs.
They all do. That's a requirement.
Okay, well, if they do, then it will be simple.
Yep, I think let's try and do that. Is that okay with you, Seth?
Yeah, no, however, I mean, literally the easiest way to provide people who are paying attention electronic notice of these applications is all I care about. I think it's important. Based on the deletion of the language, I've already said it. Whatever's easiest is the way it should be done.
All right, sounds good. Page 17. C2, whether the permit application is complete, i.e. contains certified information. How about complete information or all the information that's required?
I'm sorry, where are you?
I'm on page 17, C2.
Okay,
It says contains certified information. I'm not sure what.
I agree with that because, yeah, I mean, certified I think is like the engineering standard, right?
So how about the required information? Okay.
Required.
And then C2, whether the permit application is complete, the certified information with each applicable provision of this ordinance and other applicable town ordinance. My suggestion would be to put a period there. And then after that, there is an awful lot of stuff that's very duplicative. This is about emergency repairs. Basically, emergency repairs, the permit application has to meet all the standards of a regular permit application. I don't think we need to restate all that again. And so I think, why don't we in our abundant leisure time take a look at this and see what's duplicative in there, because I think a lot of it's repeated other places earlier in the ordinance, and I don't think we necessarily need to repeat all that.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying is correct. Say everything is required from a normal application and anything that's in addition. I think that's fine. That's good drafting, right?
Yep, I think so. Now, the only other thing is, and this is going to be a little more dicey again, these are emergencies. So by their nature, they need to be taken care of quickly before a house falls in the lake. So we're going to require that an emergency application get a delineation. I talked to the delineator and I said, how quick could you do a delineation? If a homeowner says, I need a delineation, she says, well, I could drop everything I'm doing, but it would cost them a lot more, and I could probably get it done in 2 weeks. 2 weeks in an emergency is problematic. Houses can fall in the lake in 2 weeks easily, especially if it's a true emergency. So what I'm suggesting is that, and this will be very controversial, I'm sure, but maybe in these cases of what the building commission deems to be a true emergency, instead of a delineation, we allow them to build above the Army Corps' 584. Because I'm just afraid that if we don't do that, it's going to be impossible for these people to save their homes. So I'm throwing it out there. Go ahead, shoot it to hell. I don't care.
hey, before we get into that controversy, did we say on 2A and B we don't need A and B? Am I understanding that correctly?
I don't know if that's true. I think we need to examine the language to see.
I think we can. I think we're all too tired to look at it all right
He
now.
said in our spare time, review it.
I think what we needed to do was compare the language to what's required from an ordinary permit and include, and if it's the exact same, say, include the information that's required for an ordinary permit, and if there's additional items, and then say, and the additional items.
Yep.
So we're just cutting out words.
Yep.
Well, we're doing the same thing in this D paragraph. We re-interject that same language again.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of stuff there that can be gotten rid of.
And one thing I would say is when you get to D5, 4, which is in the center of the page now, if it's going to have to, if the emergency permit's going to have to comply with all the applicable provisions of the rest of the ordinance, it won't be any different than a regular permit application then. So that's where I think the time frame is problematic.
Well, the time frame for the delineation, I think, is. Because the delineation is what's going to take them the time.
Like, I don't understand why. I mean, all the emergency application process does is allows you to get permission on a rapid basis.
Yep.
To fix or build a seawall if an emergency exists. It doesn't allow you to like ignore the law and build a seawall wherever you want just because your house is going to fall in the water. Like, you should have planned for it, and or you know, you should. Like, we don't change the law just because you have an emergency. You should have done something previously.
But Seth, an emergency, by virtue of being an emergency, is not the same as the standard application process. This whole clause is about exceptions based on emergencies.
No, it's about a rapid time frame. You still need to show that you own the property where you're going to build something.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all, but Bob's point about the delineation has become a problem for us on the last few seawall applications. So we're trying to get language built in here, or at least massage this language such that the building commission has some latitude on emergency permits. If all we're going to do is restate what we have up above in the rest of the ordinance, we have no leeway for emergencies.
You know, the building commission is going to say, is this a true emergency or not? So it's not like somebody's going to be able to manipulate us and say, oh, I want that 584. So I'm going to just declare it's an emergency. You know, if they do that, we're going to say, no, this isn't an emergency. Go back to the drawing board. So I guess that's my concern.
I conceptually, like, it's, I mean, I get the issue, and I'd be willing to like discuss a workaround, but you can't just rubber stamp something because it's above 584. It's just contrary to the statute that provides the emergency application process.
Well, it's an exception. That's what this section is labeled, as an exception, right?
Well, but the Indiana legislature, the reason we created this section was because the Indiana legislature passed a law providing for emergency provisions that said you had to show what an OHWM was. And now we're saying you don't have to show that anymore? Like, I don't know how that's like even remotely within the spirit of the law.
I think Seth is right. What the legislature did was said, we need a timely adjudication for this permit. That's what the emergency mandates, and that's what Seth has said. It's the timing. It's not allowing you to disregard what the law requires. And to use 584 is just clearly not correct. It's not a line between public and private property. It's something else. It's a regulatory jurisdiction. So if you're going to use 584, you can pick any number that you want. That's just not right.
Yeah, I mean, where I'd be willing to like compromise on this is not on the delineation, but on the requirement to deny the permit if it can't be determined within 10 days, right? Because right now there's language like if the building commission can't make a determination that all these items are met within 10 days, they're required to deny the permit. I would open that time up so that they have additional time to get the delineation. But I don't see how you can grant a permit that you're not allowed to grant, or grant a permit that doesn't show that these people are building something on their own property.
Okay. Well,
It just doesn't. It's just, and this is the problem with having an attorney here who's like dug in on like what the law says to follow the law. But I don't know how you can grant a permit that doesn't demonstrate that the person owns the property that they're building on.
all right.
And I don't think the 584 standard does that.
All right. So I would suggest that what we do is we look at what I think is somewhat repetitive between 154.207 and then 2A, B, D, and then 2, 3, and 4, and E, and try and see if we need to even repeat most of what's in there, because I think a lot of that is just basically repeating what's in the rest of the ordinance.
That's fine.
And so maybe Seth, you and I get together with Chris maybe and work on that. Does that sound reasonable?
That sounds great.
Okay. I'm done with this.
Hey, Bob, it's Mike.
Yep.
I don't mean to be a meeting extender. I really don't. But I'd like to go back to 154.2, which is the purpose, intent, and general applicability to this ordinance.
Okay.
And in my observation is, by the way, I applaud all of you on going through all these moving parts and trying to reach the proper conclusions to protect the town and protect our homeowners and everything else in between. It's an amazing amount of work that's gone into this. So for what I'm about to say then is not a criticism, but more of an observation of somebody who's, new to this particular ordinance. And number two, thinking in terms of, in general, our residents who are going to look at the ordinance and they're going to say, what was the objective here? And we start off with the whereas page, and then we move into this section on 154.2, and we get into what I would consider to be the business case. What are we trying to achieve here? And when I read that, and as just a resident who's not familiar with the issues, and there are many, as I know, if they were to read this, they might not walk away with a proper understanding of the objectives, which then lead into all of the legal ramifications in the following pages. It's just an observation. I think the opening paragraph is fine. It's really telling you what the intent is overall, but I think there are some things that are pretty specific here. And I think if you were able to read it in a summary, it would lead you into the ordinance in a way that you understand what we're talking about when you reach the various elements of walls and so on and so forth. It's just a suggestion. I don't know what the right way is, but obviously this ordinance started for a reason, a lot of reasons, and there were objectives behind its origin. And I think it's an important ordinance, but I think there's something that we could do to make it a little more digestible. As we see, it's not all that digestible once you get into it. It's something that I think would be a benefit. Just an observation. Again, not meant as criticism, just an observation.
What are your suggestions that we add or to subtract?
Well, I would go through there's 10 bullet points here, right, Seth? And I would say that some are fairly general, some are a little more specific. But when we get down to what are we really trying to accomplish here, it doesn't really tell you that. I don't think, especially after I've listened to all the detail about all the various moving parts of this thing. I'd be happy to sit down with someone else and try to hammer this out. But what I would traditionally call this is a business case. What are we doing? What are we trying to accomplish? And I understand the legalese on the first page. That can't change. But somewhere in here, I think the summary has to be more specific.
154-200 is not a summary. You use the word business case. That's fine language. That's not what this is either. This was put here at the direction of council to justify, if you will, or present the business case for why you have the ordinance. These bullet points come from our 2016 comprehensive plan. It also comes from the Indiana Shoreline Protection Guide. These things are all here for a purpose. I happen to think they're very clear. So I hear what you're saying, but I don't know what it is you're looking for. If you're looking for a 2-sentence summary to hand out, that's not the purpose of this ordinance. So I don't see any reason to belabor purpose, intent, and general applicability.
All right. And with all due respect, Mike, when I read it, I don't get that sense. And
Well,
I
that's
appreciate the 2016 comprehensive plan. I appreciate all of that. But for the general resident here, who's first of all not an attorney in most cases, many cases, they're not going to necessarily pick up what this ordinance is trying to accomplish.
Well, maybe that's the difference, Mike, here. This is not a document to read as bedtime reading. This is a legal ordinance. It's a legal document. It's very hard to understand all the words in here because it's not meant for pleasurable reading. So this is here for a purpose. So that's all I had to say. I don't think there's any reason to revisit this section.
Okay. Thanks for hearing me out.
Anybody else have any comments about this ordinance? I don't know about you all, but I'm starting to see double. We've got maximum building size solar ordinance on the agenda, but I don't know that I'm up for it tonight.
Yeah, I can tell you, I with the redraft of the ordinance we just did, and then the redraft of the solar ordinance, I didn't make it to the maximum building size, so we can punt that till next time. On the solar ordinance, I have provided this to the APC. I have provided it to a few people like Carl Kowalski who are kind of in the weeds and super knowledgeable about it. Some of them have given me feedback. I'd like the additional time to work with Chris to include and incorporate the other ordinances that we discuss, and then to work with Carl and whoever else wants input to make this more refined, so we can have and like Mike sent me some questions that I'd like to address that I wasn't able to get to before tonight. So I'd like the additional time to address those comments, see if I can incorporate other people's comments, and then make this a little closer to a workable ordinance between now and the next meeting.
Seth, it's Anita. I'd be happy to keep working with you on this if you need anything.
Okay.
All right, so that leaves right away. I'm not ready to talk about that tonight. I don't think anybody else is in shape to do it. I know I'm not.
Yeah.
Public hearings, we have none. New business, we have none. Any public comment? I don't see any, but if anybody wants to say anything, speak now or forever hold your peace.
So is the plan then that Chris will resend? I know that you tasked us with looking at some of the duplicative language, page 17, 154.207, but will Chris send out yet another copy with changes that we talked about tonight, and then we can then look at that newer?
Yeah, I think what we'll do is, we skipped over that last duplicative section, which is big. I think what we've got is so Chris and Seth and I can get together, decide what we can do away with there, what we need to keep. And then once we're done with that, then Chris can send out a copy to everybody. And I would suggest, Chris, that when we do it this time, the stuff that's got a line through it, let's get rid of that just to make it a little easier to read, if that's okay.
I think for conversation purposes, right? But if you guys are inclined to move this thing forward, I do think it's important that I'm going to have to go back a version or two, right? And because, for instance, some of what Seth added tonight, and not to add to this meeting, in purple, that really should be red, right? Because under our key code, those were the new changes. So we'll have to go back and make sure, but I think it's important for the public to see the history of the changes too.
Yeah, it's part of the amendment and restatement. Yeah.
Yeah. So Dr. LeMay, what I'm saying is once we all agree on what the changes are, the purple, some of those other ones will come out.
Okay.
And those will be red changes.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
All right, so we'll get together, we'll figure out a time, I'll talk to you guys, and we'll come up with a time, and we'll do it on Zoom again, okay?
Sounds good.
Closing matters, next meeting is 3/15/21. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you, Bob.